Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I'm your host, Jason, as always. And today we have another Texas hiking legend. Kip, welcome to the podcast.
Jason, hey, good to talk to you. Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely. It's been a while since we talked.
Yeah, we met. I guess it was just over 3 years ago. Had a big adventure, and we've kind of messaged since then. But I don't know if I've seen you in person.
No, absolutely not. And it's funny. I met probably on that trip to Guad, I met two of the nicest people that I've ever met in my life. And that was Sam. So, Sam who went hiking with
Remember
us. I
Sam?
had I had just met him. And then, one thing that I took away from that trip, and I even told Sam, I was like, man, Kip is just a nice guy. He's like the, probably the nicest person I've ever met. Like you just want to be around Kip. And so, we got a giggle about that trip. I just met two wonderful people.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the kind comments. And that's one thing nice about the hiking and backpacking community in general, I think anyway, is just some really cool, nice people.
Absolutely. So kind of just to take a step back on how we actually met. And I know, like, in person we met at Guadalupe, but before that, I think we were talking on the Guadalupe Facebook page. I think maybe I had made a post that I was heading out there, and you were you were taking a group out there to find the plane crash, the crash site. And I think you had messaged me and said, "Hey, we're going to be there the same time." And yeah, at that time I've tried to find the plane twice. I knew where it was located. The first time I took my son, and I didn't realize, like walking that ridge line from Bush Mountain and then dropping down that canyon, it was pretty sketch. And I had Connor up on the ridge in case something happened, and I almost went over this cliff, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So I went back and got him, and then the next time I took him, and then we had another person that met us, and yeah, it just ended up not working out. I don't want to really get into the details. And then when you messaged me, I was I was excited because like your experience and having another experienced hiker. The reservation that I had is like I told you, okay, you and I both had the same coordinates. We were probably talking originally about doing the kind of the normal, you walk to Bush, you hit that ridge line, walk as far
Yeah,
as
and go
as you
top
need to, and
down.
then drop down. And I said, that's pretty dangerous. There's an alternate way that I'm looking at, and it's to pass where you would normally exit the trail
Right.
and go over, yeah, it's one more peak, but go over that peak and drop down that really flat wash, walk down, and then just walk back to it. And so when we started out, I was like way nervous, like, oh, please don't ruin their trip. You know, these are such great people, and I don't want to be the reason why. But it worked out wonderful.
Oh, it was a great plan. Yeah, some friends and I, we had planned to go find that B-24 just as an adventure and to pay our respects. I'd been looking at that Guadalupe fan page, and had seen several posts from you and on the page, and I thought, man, this guy, he knows the Guads, he knows the ins and outs. And so, yeah, I messaged you, and we kind of connected that way. And turns out, well, we were going to be there at the same time, and it was just a great experience. And your suggestion to go a little bit further, catch that draw. and then come up that way. It worked out beautifully for the trip.
Yeah, I think when we started that hike, we were on a little bit of rocky terms. You were on Central Standard Time still, and I was on Mountain Time. And I was joking with Sam. I was like, "Man, Kip, like he just walks into the park and goes, I'm on my own time zone, not your time
Oh
zone."
my goodness. Yes, that was my bad. For anyone listening, Guadalupe Park National Park is Mountain Time Zone, which y'all may have known that. I knew that Mountain Time started, El Paso just west of it, but
Right.
I don't know. It was only my second time to the park. And yeah, we had set that early, I think 3 a.m. Start time or 4 a.m. And
Yeah.
we're like, where's Jason and Sam? Where's Jason? And I called and I was texting. And anyway, yeah, I had a little mess up there, but you guys
Well,
caught us in no time flat.
yeah, you texted and you're like, "Are you guys up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're eating breakfast." And you're like, well, we're gonna go ahead and start." And I'm like, "Oh wow, okay, we'll do our best to catch up." And yeah,
Oh,
we caught you guys up right before the top of Tejas, but no,
yeah.
we made the joke that, man, this guy's a like, he doesn't care about the time zone in Guadalupe. He sets it.
Oh, that is funny, but it worked out. It worked out well for all of us. But I was, yeah, totally off base there on that time zone thing. But you know what? I'll never forget it.
That exactly. And and I was like to Sam, I was like, man, I hope he's not mad, like I had this plan to go further and try this different thing, and then like I'm not even there. I go, we better hurry up and catch up. Before that hiking trip, the night before, and I think I wanted to find this more than the B-24 crash site, is Jose's grave. And when we met up, that was part of the plan, is that the day before, I don't think it was night, but the mid-afternoon when y'all got in, is us all go and try to find Jose. I don't know. I've had to bail on a lot of hikes just for whatever reasons, and not reaching the goal. And that was probably the most devastating at first, when we went out to search for Jose. Like, we had all the pictures, we had all the information, parked where we were supposed to park, we walked down the old highway, we dropped off when we needed to, turned back up towards the highway, and we literally just walked right past it, kept walking, and then we kind of went up on that flat area, and we were looking at the pictures where it showed his headstone and El Capitan in the back.
Oh yeah, we were,
It
it
had
was
to be here. It had to be here.
I
It's
know
got to be
it
here.
was so fun and so frustrating because we get there, you're all energized and we're looking, and we're like, we have to be on top of it because you'd look at that photo and look at the background and you'd match it up where you're standing, and then you'd scoot up a little, scoot over a little, and we tried and tried and tried.
And so I was, and kind of just to give the listener some backstory, like I've been researching it for probably 3 years, not trying to look for it. This was the first time to look for it. But I would go into Van Horn. There's a restaurant. It's no longer open, named Mom's Kitchen. It's, the grandfather's the server, the busboy, the grandmother's the cook. Got maybe 5 or 6 tables, the absolute best food in the world. And I would just sit and talk to him about hiking and that area and the history. And he told me about the grave, but he didn't know anything really about it. Just that when they were younger, they had visited it. So I'm searching, searching, searching. Put in all this time. Have Sam, have you guys, and we're out there looking. And then when we couldn't find it, I hiked up onto the highway and was just kind of looking, to see kind of like a higher perspective. And then you guys are like, we don't see it. I'm like, I don't see it. I was just devastated. And so I walked back to the car. In that area, you don't have cell service. And somehow you texted me and said, we found it. So you have to tell me what happened on your way back to head back to the cars, how you guys found it.
Yeah, my friend Julie was with us, and my friend Greg and his family, and we were looking, and I told Julie, I said, "We're not giving up. We're going to find this thing somehow or another." And then that wore down, and we're like, "Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe we'll come back tomorrow or the next day." But my friend Greg, he had disappeared on us, so we're kind of rounding a couple of folks up to start heading back to the old highway to get out of there. And we're like, "Where's Greg? Where's Greg?" And he had gone further, I guess, down from that flat area we
Yeah.
were at. And we're looking, and all of a sudden we hear him yell, "I've got it. I found it. I've got it." And of course, we were just like, "Are you serious?" It was the best news ever. And of course, yeah, cell service was patchy. I'm like, I got to get a hold of Jason. And, we were lucky that I was able to reach out, get you. And you were like, "I'll be right there." and, uh, and we got to see the headstone. And it was just well, it's a wild story, and the headstone is so unique, a great piece of history. I did not know about it until meeting you, and so it was like this extra adventure built into that weekend,
Yeah.
and then to find it and to just all of us to get together and kind of celebrate and see it, it was pretty cool.
And I can still remember, and I still have the pants that have all the rips in them, where you when you I said I'll be right there. I start running down. You know how you have to drop down to the old highway. I start running down the highway. I jump off where the bridge is, and instead of going around, I just went over that big hill, and I'm like getting torn up by cactus, and pants are
Oh
ripped,
yes.
and I can remember coming over that little hill and seeing you guys around it. Like I was teared up. I was so happy
Yeah.
to see it. And I don't know if you know, but every time since then that I go to Guadalupe Mountains, I go visit Jose.
Yes, I have
Yeah,
seen that, and I will, I will too when anytime I'm back there. I have not been back since then, but yes, that was so unique, so much history right there, and then the story behind it. Wow.
I have an update to that story.
Oh, really?
So I actually, in my last trip was February. I 2 weeks before that, I actually found, because I'm going to do a podcast on Jose. I actually found a letter in New Mexico archives from his captain, James Longstreet, where he wrote to his superiors on how Jose died.
Wow.
So, what happened was, like a day or two before his actual death, he was reprimanded by uh, Colonel or Captain James Longstreet for leaving his party when they were out scouting. So the next day he went missing. So they don't know if he was, I don't know, had his feelings hurt and was just going to abandon them, or he just kind of went out scouting on his own and didn't tell anybody. But he went missing. Where his grave is at is not where he was actually killed. In the letter, it says, we found his body near the mountain. And when you look in that area, the only mountain is El Capitan. That's,
Yeah.
pretty close. And so what they did is they found him toward close to the mountain. So probably towards El Capitan. Where his grave is now is where they were camping. And so
Oh,
they were kind of playing cat and mouse with the Indians. They were running out of water. So that's where they were camping. They buried him, and then they left that camp to go to another camp where there was a natural spring. Well, when the Indians saw that um, they had left the camp, they came through the camp, saw that they had buried him. They dug him up. And then it's kind of the story that dug him up, scalped him, stripped him, and filled him full of arrows. And then when there was it wasn't even the original people that were at the camp. Another party came through and they saw what had happened and they reburied him.
That's crazy
Yeah, I can
history
email
right
you
there.
the letter. It's
Yeah,
a
I'd
very
love to see
interesting
that.
ring. Yeah. So let's talk about our trip to the B-24 plane crash. And before we get started, if you're a listener and you work for the National Park of Guadalupe Mountains, yes, we understand now that it's illegal to walk off trail. This was a long time ago. This was when there was no rules to this, to visiting it. In fact, the coordinates, when I was confirming the coordinates on my very first time going, it was a park ranger that said, yes, you have the right coordinates. So
Yeah.
we should not get in trouble.
No, and it was, I think, from what my research, it was all good. Now since then there was another group interested in going, and then we come to find out that, oh, now there's a permit in place that you
Yeah,
can go.
$150.
Yeah, you pay a permit, you could go. I think a ranger leads the hike, possibly. Is
Yeah.
that right? But yeah,
Boring.
yeah, but none of that was in place when we did it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so,
So
but
I just want to throw that out there so we don't get arrested.
good.
All right. So what were you thinking? Like leading up, it's you're at the trailhead. Okay, we'll skip past the part where you're waiting on us. But like you guys start hiking. Like, what's kind of going through your mind about this hike?
Well, one, it was a beautiful morning. It was still dark, and the sky, the stars, it was amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, okay, here we go on this adventure to find something that we may or may not find. I knew it would be a hard hike, and I'd never been on Tejas. My only experience at the park had been, I've been up the peak
Mm-hmm.
one time, and so I'm on this new trail. I knew we had a lot of miles to cover and a lot of elevation to go up. And so it was Greg, Julie, myself, and then you, Sam, joined us. And but I just remember that morning just being excited, and the stars, and we of course here, and then thereafter that, the wonderful sunrise that came up, the glow that slowly starts from the east
Yeah.
and just comes up. It was a very, very good morning, and it wasn't easy though. Those first 30 minutes, you got that adrenaline and you're ready to
Yeah.
go, and then as that elevation kicks in, you get a little. At least for me, I get a little slower as we go up.
Did you have any thoughts that anybody in the party may not be able to make it, or did you kind of maybe think like, man, this? I know you really can't until you do it understand the difficulty, but like, was any of that worrying you as?
Not so much, because I knew, we had a good feel on the coordinates, the route, which a lot, you can get that information. But then with you being there in that area previously, um, I just felt pretty good about our chances of finding this.
I know for me, when we passed up the ridge, and I think I even said, okay, this is the ridge that we you would normally take, and then I just remember looking ahead and just seeing that what we were about to have to climb because of this idea that I had. I was like, man, they're gonna, and it's probably not the biggest kind of like little peak that you have to go over heading out the bush, but it's a good hike, and especially being extra, I was just like, oh, please, let this work out. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like we everybody was feeling good, because we checked in, everybody good, good, good. I think even we took a little rest, then we headed out, and it absolutely played out perfectly. Like when we got to the spot, I think right at first it was a little steep, and then it just flattened out, and it was just kind of a casual walk down that draw till it kind of flattened out and we could turn back.
It was a nice walk down. It was steep at first, like you said, and then we're walking down in this dry creek bed, and but remember, it was full of leaves, so there were a couple
Oh,
of spots you step down because you're going down, and but not too steep, but you see leaves everywhere, and you step in this one spot, and your leg may drop 2 or 3 feet.
yeah, that happened a couple of times. And what also was kind of funny is, you had it on your phone, so as we were hiking, you could see where we were at on the map, and like I was a little bit ahead, and I just like walked past where we should hike up,
Yeah,
and you're like, "Hey, I think it's right up here," and I'm like probably like 100 yards ahead. I'm like, "Oh crap!" Came back, and where we had it pinned, you start hiking up, and it what I would say probably 50 yards up, you start to see the wreckage or pieces of it.
yeah, there's some debris. Make a turn, get out of that draw, and it wasn't far. Like you said,
Yeah.
maybe 50 yards, and you start seeing pieces. And and then we knew from there, it was a pretty big wreck area or
Oh,
wreckage
it was, yeah.
area. And so there's pieces here, and then from there, it's determining which way to climb up and around.
And yeah, we lucked out because we went up and then started kind of going to the right, saw some really cool stuff, and then I don't remember who took off to the left, and then all of a sudden they started yelling because it was that big piece where where the
Yeah.
the memorial sign is,
Yes.
and that was crazy. You could see the actual chairs in that piece, engine, the propeller. You're
Yeah.
standing on part of the wing.
It was fascinating, and of course, and it was, it was serious too because it was a very bad, tragic event. This was a wreckage a plane crash that occurred December 31st of 1943,
Mm-hmm.
and 5 airmen lost their lives. And I think the group we paid our respects well, as far as it was, it was an exciting, it was something, an adventure to go find, but we did take time to kind of remember what had happened there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was and yeah, and like, that was probably about 2.5 years of me researching, and it was my third attempt to try to locate it. And yeah, it
Yeah,
was it was
and from the story, and even right there when we were in the debris, there are still like these little cliffs and drop offs all around this. And when that accident happened in this New Year's Eve of 1943, they had sent out search teams to look and locate and see what they could find. Nothing was located, nothing happened until May of 44. And it was a trapper, of all people, a trapper up in the mountains who came across the wreckage and notified authorities. So you're looking at, 5 months later, it took
yeah.
5 months for this to be located.
And I think when it crashed, there was a snowstorm that night or the next day where it hid the plane for when they were out trying to search for it. But can you imagine being a trapper, and what are you trapping up there in those canyons? Because that's you know
Yeah.
you probably don't have ultralight gear and
Yeah, I can't
awesome.
imagine.
Yeah, yeah, and back then it wasn't even a national park. It was just, I don't know if back then if it was, if anybody owned the land. I know Smith Springs. I don't remember when they moved in,
Yeah.
but it was in the
I
early
don't know,
1900s. Yeah.
but yeah, for him to be a trapper up there with, yeah, all no telling what kind of gear, equipment, maybe, hopefully some mules, maybe,
Yeah.
but fascinating history. It was quite the adventure. There was actually where you mentioned the main part of the fuselage where there's a plaque up on the wall of the piece of the plane. We found an ammo box.
Yep.
You remember the ammo box,
Mm-hmm.
and it had like a sign-in sheet, or you know what I mean, a registration where
Yeah.
you could put your name and the date. And that was kind of located there near that. And so, and then the trek out was not easy once we left that area.
Yeah. The trek out, we just decided to, like, the way you would come down the normal way, we would just go up that way. And yeah, it was horrible.
Yes. What made a lot of that difficult was just the amount of scrub and brush and limbs. It was just basically powering through, limbs any direction you wanted to go.
Yeah. And and then once you got to the trail, then you kind of look back towards Pine Springs, and you see all these peaks that you have to cross to get, to drop down on Tejas. And it was a tough day. So now, kind of just now that those were our first two, when we met, our first two hikes. Now, just to kind of to take a step back, how long have you been hiking or backpacking?
Yeah, well, for me, it's been most of my life, and what I mean by that, I grew up in Borger, Texas, here in the Texas Panhandle, which is where I'm in Amarillo now. And we lived on the northwest side of town, and right behind our house was what we called the canyons. And so growing up as early as I can remember, maybe, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, I had two brothers and we had neighborhood friends. We were always out in the canyons. And in this set of canyons, I guess you would probably consider them to be like river breaks, kind of some
Yeah.
rough land up and down, and but not far, maybe a 15-minute walk from our house, maybe 20 minutes, was what they called Bicycle Falls, which was a waterfall, which you could crawl up underneath there. I think at one time it may have been used by Native Americans. I'm not 100% on that, but there was Bicycle Falls. Then you go further down that creek, Tricycle Falls, and if you go way out, there was Motorcycle Falls. And this is, of course, I was a kid, and you hear these names, and you're just mesmerized, and all you want to do is go out and explore. And the goal was to try to make it someday to Motorcycle Falls,
Oh
and
man.
see what's out there. And so we had these canyons around us. We were always out. We were always looking at. We were catching snakes. I love rocks. There's around Borger. There's a lot of flint, Elevates flint. We're not too far from Lake Meredith. Elevates National Monument is there, and so the flint, the animals, and so I lived in that part of town until I was about 10 years old, and then we moved to from the north, well, that was the northwest corner of Borger. We moved to the southeast corner of Borger, and there was a different set of canyons, what we called, and you know, creeks, ponds. Same thing. I spent my time out there growing up, hiking around. Me and my friends. That's where you could find us. Would be out there. And as far as camping, my family, we would camp. We weren't crazy hardcore campers, but we would car camp, maybe once a year. And of course, involved in Cub Scouts. My mom was a pack mom, and so we did a lot of outdoor Cub Scout activities, some camping, and then random camping trips with family, with my brothers. Um, when I was 13 years old, would be my first backpacking trip. I went 2 summers when I was maybe 13 and 14. My parents sent me and my younger brother to New Mexico, up in the Pecos Wilderness. It was a camp called Brush Ranch, and you'd go up there for a month. And it was, of course, now I look back, it was the coolest event ever. But we're up in the mountains for 1 month of these 2 summers, and that first year up there, they took a volunteer sheet, a 3-night backpacking trip up to East Pecos Baldy Mountain. And so I signed up, not ever doing anything like that, and it was tough, but I loved every second of it. Even though when we came down after the 3 nights, I'm 100 feet coming down the mountain, 100 feet from the van that's picking us up. I'm bawling and boohooing because it had been so tough, so hard. In fact, I'm just crying, walking toward that van, and I fall on my face with that backpack on. But
Oh.
but that aside, no, that was Brush Ranch was an excellent experience. It was a getaway camp. People from multiple states came or sent their kiddos, and a lot of outdoor activities. And that's that first backpacking trip.
So how much hiking and stuff do you do now?
Now, I do quite a bit. I'm not far from Paladero Canyon. So, in a way, it's my backyard. And so I can be done with my work shift and be out there in 25, 30 minutes.
Are
Um,
you serious?
Yeah, I can be out there. I'm lucky, as far as there's some opportunities. Not many people may realize or know the opportunities up here in the Panhandle, but there are quite a few. And just and so I'm out there a lot, and I love it. I can go out there every day if I wanted to, or if I could, I would. But I do enjoy getting out.
I mean, for sure, when I think of Palodoro, you are my expert. So if I ever have any questions or, what hikes, I think when Lori and I went out there, I'd asked you outside of the lighthouse, what would you recommend? Um, I didn't realize you were that close.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And
No
what
complaint.
about for Caprock? How far is that from you? About an hour?
That'd be an hour 40 minutes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, but not too bad still.
No, absolutely not. And then Copper Breaks, I guess, is even a little bit further.
Yeah, that would be getting close to about 3 hours from
Oh
here to
yeah,
Copper
yeah.
Breaks. Yeah, but no, it's good. I have that handy, and for your listeners, yeah, I'm sure you have some up here in the Panhandle area. We have, there's Palo Duro and all it offers. There's Caprock Canyons, Lake Meredith, and Alabates. I have some good trails and good activities available, and then down there, not too far from Caprock Canyons, is a private ranch that allows public access. It's called Pole Canyon Ranch.
What?
Um, yeah, it's a $10 day use. It's really popular with the equestrian world. A lot of people take their trailers and horses there. That's its main, I think its main
Ah,
clientele are horseback riders from all over, but they do allow hikers. You just pay a day fee.
yeah.
Um, there's a network of roads and trails out there. There are some slot canyons, some secret spots. There's some really, really cool place, and it is only maybe 10 miles, 10 minutes from Caprock Canyons State Park.
Really? Huh. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
check that out because and I think it was the podcast with Todd. Like, I love the black sheep of our uh Texas trails. So, Big Bend is the most popular national park. I'm a I'm a Guadalupe guy. Palo Duro is the most popular state park, I would argue, and I'm definitely a Caprock guy.
Yes.
Because I like walking and not seeing anybody ever.
It is nice. And I do admit I do a lot of off-trail hiking. And
Hmm.
so um, like at Palo Duro, there's all these dry draws, and you can
Yeah,
basically pick any draw and get up there and just see some of the coolest things, rocks, plants, animals. A lot of the draws you end up running into some running water. I mean, they may be dry for you know, a mile or more, and but you do find patches of water, which is a whole other ecosystem that you're entering when you get to that water.
yeah.
And so I do a lot of off-trail hiking around here.
Wow. So right now, like, is there anything that inspires you to hike and backpack? Like for me, I don't know if you call it that would inspire me, but I'm 51 years old, and if I don't have a challenge, or if I'm not, like planning something or trying to not train but get ready for something, like I'm just laying in the bed. And so, I've just noticed at my age I have to be working towards something, you know.
Yeah, for me, I have my inspiration is just to uh, work, and for everybody, work, life, job, school, everything can be stressful. And for me, it's an escape. It's my going out to wherever, outdoors, to hike, to kayak, to backpack. It's my doctor, my therapy.
Right.
And I know that sounds a little cliche, but it is so true. You can just get out there, and just everything is different when you're out there in surrounded by nature, and just away from the hustle and bustle of the everyday life.
So I think this is an interesting question. Basically, kind of like what does hiking and backpacking mean to you? And I'd like to rephrase it as to what happens if you couldn't hike or backpack?
Good question. I may, I don't know. I would probably be maybe into and biking, possibly. I don't do
Yeah.
much of that, but I could see I like to stay busy and active.
Yeah.
I try to avoid sitting still if possible. I mean, I do that, but I try to stay active and busy. I have what's called Crohn's disease, which is kind of a in a nutshell, it's your intestines full of ulcers,
Yeah.
and it affects a lot of people. It's kind of known as a young person's disease. A lot of people from teens into their 30s get it. Of course, I'm much older than that, and so with that, uh, I want to stay active. I want to do things. Of course, I love the exploring aspect of things to find new things. I love the nature, the history. If I could go back to school, go back all over again, I would take biology more serious
Yeah.
and maybe do a whole different career than I've been instead of like management and finance and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. Because currently, my whole life I've been kind of tied to a desk and I've never really enjoyed it. Um, but
It
uh,
pays the
but
bills.
it pays the bills and has the benefits, and I do have a good I'm in a good spot at work, even though it is high stress. But getting out, it just helps to be for me it helps to be so close to places like Paladuro, Caprock Canyons, Lake Meredith. It's good to have a good exit.
Yeah. And so if you look at the last 10 years of your life and as it relates to hiking and backpacking, do you find yourself doing this more solo, with family, with friends?
I do all the above. So I've the last several years I've made some great lifelong friends that are into the same outdoor life with hiking, backpacking, archaeology, plants, animals. I've really got feel so lucky to have this group of friends that we do a lot of things together. And so, of course, love our group activities that we do. But I'm one that I have to have some solo time.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, I crave hikes and getting out on my own. Just a little me time, a little, I don't know if you want to call it reflection time, but I like to just do some solo hikes and get out there. I have a couple of spots at Paladuro I go to just to think, to
Hmm.
sit, to chill, to do nothing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mix it up. Friends, family. Of course, I grew up. I have three kiddos, and I take my kids. We try to go camping, like car camping, 1 to 2 times a year.
Nice.
We would do that, and of course some hikes they don't they don't go as much as I want. I usually always ask, sometimes make them go, but
Yeah.
a lot of times they're busy with their life and their things. But I like doing I really love it. My favorite thing is hiking with my kiddos. It just doesn't happen near enough. um, my my girlfriend I met through my hiking friends. That was the connection there, and
Yeah.
she's always been pretty active person, but not into the hiking and the outdoor. And we just celebrated our third anniversary, and
Well,
she is a
congratulations.
thank you. And I tell you what, she is something else. She is game for anything. We have hiked. I've gotten her into all sorts of hikes, backpacking trips, and it is so cool to that she's open and willing to give this a try. It's very cool.
So my wife, we have rules. So she will hike with me, she'll backpack with me, but only her rules are she's only going to do it for one night because she figures that she won't have to poop in the woods and she will not poop in the woods. So that's her rules, and the hikes can't be over 10 miles.
Yeah,
So as
that's
long
a
as I can fit within those criteria, she's also very supportive.
Yeah, I enjoyed your podcast, your first episode, and in fact, my girlfriend listened to it as well. And of course, we see your pictures and posts, and I'm like, wow, look what they're doing, look where they went. When you did
Uh-huh.
your tour of state parks.
15 state
Um,
parks in like 8 days.
yeah, and so I would show her that, and she liked your wife's rules now,
Yeah.
and she would probably go with that. But we were just a few weeks ago. We were in Utah. We went out to Reflection Canyon, and it wasn't overnight.
Hmm.
And sometimes on a one night deal, you can kind of turn your body off and not go to the bathroom.
Right, right.
Sometimes you can, but out there it is wag bags. If you
Oh,
have to go
yeah.
to the bathroom, you have to pack it out. And
Yep.
so that was a new experience for some of the group. And so, um, but she is such a trooper.
Yeah.
I really appreciate. It's good to have someone that you care about that's willing to try those things, give it a shot. And what's great is if she wants to go, she goes. If she doesn't want to go, she says, "Go and have fun."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when she tells me go and have fun, now it's are you doing anything stupid? And so like, we did the quad, so we hiked from Guadalupe Peak off trail to Shumar to Bartlett to Bush, and I think we left like at 3:30 in the morning, got back, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And for sure I'm not texting her because I don't have cell service. And at that moment I didn't have a Garmin, the satellite device. And man, everybody was worried, and they were about to start calling the park service. And so that, and then we did my favorite trail in Texas is the El Capitan Trail to Shumard campsite. So it goes around El Capitan. And we did that one. It was me, Sam, and Henning, and we got a late start, and I just mentally was like, oh, this is going to be easy, no issue. It's not so much that it's a strenuous hike. It's hard hike, but mentally it broke me. It like you're getting up in those canyons and Shumard, you got 2, 3, 400 foot uh drops, you have exposure, and you can't see where your feet are being placed because of it's so overgrown. We got cliffed out 2 or 3 times. We lost the trail about a bazillion times. We finally got to the campsite. It was night, and I was talking about this in the other podcast. I told Henning and Sam, I said, I'm not hiking this back out. I'm going to hike the 10 miles out to the highway and just hitchhike back to Pine
Hitchhike.
Springs. Yeah. And that's what we did. And we were out on the highway for about 45 minutes, and this guy picked us up. So, yeah.
Uh, yeah. What did your wife think of
Well,
that?
I didn't tell her, and she just saw the picture, and she goes, "What are you doing in the back of this truck?" Because I posted the picture, and I'm like, "Uh, well, we hit." I told her that we hitchhiked and stuff. Oh, she lost her mind, and I understand, right? Like it's probably not safe, but Henning, he's a big guy. He was in the Marines. Uh, Sam, he hiked the PCT most of it, and he hitchhiked all the time. So there was three of us. Like I think the only thing that was going to happen is people were not going to stop because there was three of us. But like safety wise, I wasn't worried. And what's really funny is we get out to the highway, and I see that we're past the part where I don't remember what highway it is, but coming in from Van Horn turns into the highway. So then every car that's going to pass you is going to pass Guadalupe Visitor Center. And so I was making posts on the Guadalupe Facebook page. Hey, is anybody in the park that can give us a ride? And nobody. And this past February we were there, and we were talking about like trying to understand the new rules because we wanted to go out and do Pratt. I wanted to take my youngest son there to get him some, it's an easy off trail kind of excitement. And one of the park rangers, we were talking about that trip, and she's like, that was y'all that was making the post. and that needed a ride. We're like, yeah, and like, yeah, we saw that. We're like, what's going on? And laughing about it. I'm like, you guys didn't come out and try to help us. You're just sitting there and we
Yeah,
got some
just
we got
reading
some
your
nut.
post.
Yeah, we're reading the post and just ignoring us. Oh, that hurt. Kind of going. What would you consider your favorite state and national park in Texas?
Yeah, well, for state park, it's easy. I'm partial as far as, well, it would be Palo Duro because it's so close and it's my getaway, kind of my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been to a lot of Texas state parks. That's one of my goals the next few years. So when it comes to Texas hiking and Texas parks, it's been limited with Palo Duro, Caprock Canyons, Copper Breaks, um, then Guadalupe Mountain National Park and Big Bend National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be one or two others, but it's pretty limited. You know, Texas has what, 90 state parks,
Yeah,
I
there's a
think.
bazillion.
And so I've been fortunate to go on some out of state trips, some pretty cool places, but I love Texas and I want to see more of the state. And I go back to your rating system that you and your wife had on some of those. And um,
Pe- People
so
were asking me like, what are you considering? Like, what are you? How are you coming up with a rating system? And so, to all the listeners, I guess it was 2 years ago. My wife and I, she got, she's a teacher, and we got. She had a week off in October. Well, they have weeks off now every October, and somehow I talked her into going to. The plan was 18. We hit 15 state parks within that time that she was off, and so we started kind of like as a joke rating the state parks and giving them like a 3.75 out of 10, or and then I think we even said, maybe some of the reasons why, but yeah, it got to be, yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
yeah, it was fun. And then didn't you mix in a couple of wineries in there though?
Well, that was to get her to go. We had to, I think we hit like 3 or 4 wineries as part of the trip, and she had to have 2 or 3 hotel stays, out of, all the days that we were on the road, and majority of it was in a tent, but we had to we had to throw in some hotels.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, you know, so for the favorite parks, again, it's been limited for state parks for me, but Palo Duro would be it. But there's so many more I want to go see. On my list, I want to try to, right now I got this itch to go see Colorado Bend,
Oh yes,
check it out.
yes,
And so, and I don't know, there's a lot to do here in the state, and I want to see it. Now, it may have to be till next winter, next fall,
yeah,
winterish, but
yeah.
get some of those marked off.
Colorado Bend is wonderful, and it's not the Gorman Falls hike that's the wonderful part of the park. It's and I can't even picture the map, but and I don't even remember the trail, but there's 2 trails that kind of make a loop, and you're crossing these creeks and stuff. That it's spectacular. Gorman Falls is really nice, especially after a rain. And then you need to get down to Lost Maples.
Yeah. Did you guys, now did you backpack out there?
Lost Maples?
Yes.
Yes. And let me tell you, if you don't want to see anybody, and I haven't ever been to the east part of the park, and that's usually I think where everybody's at. So campsite B, I think C was closed. But if you head out west, and it's the most west trail that you can take, if you go out that way, it's probably called the West Trail out to campsite H. You're out in it's the very furthest campsite that there is. That To get to the campsite going that direction, it's a pretty tough hike. It's like 3.5 miles, and then coming back, you'll come back. And if you look at the map, it's the trail right next to the westernmost trail, and it slips my mind. but then you start going through all the lake or the river that cuts through there, and you start kind of hiking close to that, and it's spectacular.
Yeah, that
But yeah,
sounds
that's a
nice.
must. That's a must. Inks Lake is nice. Um, yeah, I mean that's there's you get into some of these places and you can't even like you don't even realize that you're in Texas. And have you ever done in Guadalupe Mountains up to the Notch?
Have not.
Let me don't do anything if you're gonna if you can get away, go to Guadalupe Mountains, McKittrick Canyon Trail, and then hike it to the Notch. It's not a hard hike to the Notch. Now, if you go past the Notch, it gets pretty difficult. You're gonna it's almost like there's a split in a rock, and then there's kind of another place above that that's kind of like rocky, but it's that first split in the rock, and you'll see it like once you start getting to some elevation, you'll be able to see it. When you walk through that split, it is like you're in another world. It is the most spectacular place in Texas.
That is
And
awesome. I've
and
got it on the list. It's
yeah,
on the
that
list.
that is a must. When we did it, I was with Sam and Henning, and they've seen a lot of beautiful stuff. Like Sam has hiked most of the PCT, so through Washington, the North or the High Sierras. Henning's traveled and seen a lot of stuff, and both of them, when they walked through the Notch, stopped and was like, "This is absolutely incredible. There's no way that this
Wow,
is Texas."
that's quite an endorsement there. Yeah, you've got me very interested. I'm gonna have to check into that.
Absolutely. So, well, okay, so national park, are you a Guad or a Big Bend? There's only one answer, but I want to hear your answer.
Well, I've been to both twice.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would have to lean to Big Ben, only because my friend Julie is there working
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
visitor center. Then you've got I took one of my funnest trips ever. We took kayaks and went up Santa Elena up a couple of miles. Did what they call a boomerang trip,
Uh-huh.
where you go upstream about 3 miles, and then you can get off there, and there's this Fern Canyon. It's a canyon on the Mexican side of the
Mm-hmm.
border,
Hmm.
and it's just very unique. It's almost like a white slot canyon, kind of, sort of, and there's caves, uh, and you run into some water, what's called the birthing canal. This chamber, this basically, it's this ledge, this small body of water, and to get out of it, you have to crawl under a boulder that is kind of raining water on you as you
Oh,
are
wow.
trying to climb under this boulder. And then you leave, you get back in your kayaks, and it's that 3 miles back downstream is kind of just a very comfortable, easy kayak where you're just sitting and you can just chill and float back.
Do you have to have any kind of a permit for the
Yeah, we did
kayaks?
have to get a permit. I don't think it cost anything, but they do want you registered so they
Yeah.
know who's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's that, and then I love the hot springs you can find out there.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, but nothing wrong with the quads. I mean, I've got two my favorite trips there. You know, I did Guadalupe Peak. I did it on New Year's Day.
Oh, wow.
My goal was I worked New Year's Eve till like 5 o'clock in the evening, took off, drove to Carlsbad, New Mexico, found some little place to stay. I maybe only slept for 3 hours, and then I drove down to Guadalupe to Pine Springs to get started early. I wanted to be up on the peak for sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't make it, but I got to witness an incredible sunrise from trail. It
Right,
was one of the
right.
most beautiful sunrises I've seen, because there was still snow around the trail. So you had the snow, the desert plants, the glow, such a beautiful glow before the sun poked out. Um, and so I did make it to the peak. It was just I missed the sunrise by, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours.
Yeah. That's nice though.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite trail in Texas?
Well, I'll stick with the Guadalupe Peak for my favorite trail because uh, it was just so. It was just something I had decided last minute that hey, New Year's Day, I'm going to climb highest peak in Texas. Never been to the park, read about it, probably saw some of your posts about it, even though I didn't know you at the time, and decided to give it a whirl. And so, of course, I take off at like I don't know if it was 3 or 4 in the morning, and there was they had snow on the ground, so I had these extra layers on,
Mhm.
and I probably wasn't even into the first 15 minutes of my hike, and I had to start shedding layers.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
getting hot, and but no, that was between the scenery again, a beautiful went from a dark morning to the beautiful sunrise. I got up there to the peak. I was the fourth person up. Right before the peak, a couple were coming down. And
Mhm.
then I got up there right behind a gentleman and he says he climbs the peak on New Year's Day every year.
Oh, wow.
So we visited, and what makes kind of this hike so special is and I let him borrow some water. His camelback had frozen up there. And so I have Nalgene's. And so gave him some water. We visited. He took some photos. We took some photos of each other separately. And anyway, he took off. And so from that point, I had the peak for 30 to 40 minutes
Wow.
on my own. Now it was freezing, and
Yeah.
the sun was up. I've taken my gloves on and off, but that whole peak to sit to walk, I kind of walked around up there, went over to one little ledge, went to the other, but to have that quiet and peace up there for that 30 minutes was just great. And then, of course, then the steady stream of people started coming up,
Yeah.
and from there, all my way down, it was pretty crowded. People doing that on New Year's Day, but to have that time on top to myself was pretty unique.
Hey, so you've never hiked it in the dark?
No,
Man, let me tell you, there's n at no point probably in the last 6 years do I start a hike where I'm gaining elevation in the quads, later than about 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning at latest. It is so spectacular to just because by I don't know, within a couple of hours, you should be at a really good level to catch that sunrise. And for me, usually I'm out and backing or doing a loop, and being able to experience the trails in the darkness because I'm going to see the trail in the daylight, and
right?
but to have that experience in the darkness, it's absolutely
Yeah,
spectacular. And what's amazing, and I don't know, like just talking about the peak trail, so like I think of it as an effort, and it only makes sense to me to the listeners from an effort point of view. Like I have markers, so when you get out of the hardest part of the hike, like the first 3/4 of a mile, then I said, okay, I'm X% done, and then when I get to the bridge, okay, I'm like 3/4, not maybe in a distance, but like I know my effort, like I'm 3/4 of the way done. I've most of the hard stuff is over. And man, hiking that thing at nighttime, like those mental uh locations, you just like blow through them, like wow, like I'm already here, or wow, I'm already there. And I don't know why that is, but it makes the hike so much faster, it
yeah.
seems.
I agree. I agree. I've done some, of course, that early morning start there and on Tejas.
Hmm.
And then I've done some other just late night hikes, and I enjoy it. And like you said, you those being kind of dark and limited, you're just kind of full steam ahead.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
So outside of the hike that you just told us about, can you share any more of your most memorable hiking experiences? And it doesn't really have to be related to Texas. Anything else?
yeah. Well, I've been fortunate with some of my friends here in the area. We just a few weeks ago went to Reflection Canyon in southern Utah. That's one of those places you see with Lake Powell and the winding
Hmm.
water and the steep canyon walls. Um, and then last end of July of last year, was fortunate. A friend landed some permits to go up and climb Half Dome in Yosemite.
How was that?
So it was incredible. It was
Was
tough, and
was
you're
it
on these cables, and
was it pretty
and
scary? Because if you slip off, you're
yeah,
gone. Like
yeah.
there's no. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.